So we're going to be putting together the side plates, the upper and lower side plates, and these are the basic tools that and pieces that you'll be using. You have the upper rails, you have common rails, you have the side plates. You should have a square in your kit, a corner plate, then here are your Allen keys, then you'll have T-nuts and M5x8 button head hardware. So here in the shop we have, I also use screwdriver type ball tip Allen wrench, a T-handle, and an electric drill motor with a 3mm Allen wrench in it. So we'll get started here. Now in here we have just two of the common rails. They'll be wrapped with the green shrink wrap. And we're going to start with the lowers first. So one of the things that I like to do as a quick check at the beginning is to make sure that the holes are relatively aligned on all four of the plates. So you can get your square and square up the sides and use one of your triangle corner pieces to get the ends. And then do just a basic visual check down the ends here, just to make sure that your holes are basically aligned. And these look good. So I'll pull out two of the side plates. We'll use those a little bit later. And I'll take and put the two side plates in a mirror image. And you'll see that the two inline screw holes are for the screws that are going to go to the common rail or to the upper rails there. So I usually put them together like that. Take my two common rails, put them in the middle, and so the holes that we're looking to hit for the hardware, you'll see we'll have this upper hole where the two holes are here. We'll have these two, and then this one upper hole. So we'll have 6 T-nuts that we'll need in each common rail. And the reason why I put these together is I can take and I can kind of pop them in from one end and do a basic lineup of T-nuts to the holes. They don't have to be exact. And so I'll do that for one end, and I'll do it for the other end here too. Once when I've done that, you still have the 4 T-nuts for these, and this is going to go on the two where the two common rails meet at each end. And what that allows us to do is just to take the plate, set it on top of the common rail, and start putting the hardware in. So I screw it down to where it's basically snug, and then I back it off so you can move it, so it means it's captured, the hardware has captured the T-nut. And then if there's any misalignment, you can actually move the plate to the common rail. Some people prefer to put the hardware and the T-nuts on at one time. So there's one of them that's built. pre-assembled. Okay, both of them are pre-assembled, and the reason why we do this is because you have a left and right. That's why I like putting them together that way. So they should be mirror images of them. You don't want to put both of them together the exact same way, because otherwise you'll either be making two left or two right. So you'll see that we have a gap at each end here. And what we want to do is we want to get the correct spacing. So you have a corner plate, and you could use the bed frame cross rail, which is the smallest 80-20 piece that we have here. If you get a dual extruder bot, you'll have this smaller piece. This is what I'm going to use just for demonstration purposes, and all that's going to do is it's going to give us the spacing from the end of your common rail to the end of your side plate. You're wanting to make it flush. So now you can also at this point use your square to get everything flush. What I do here is I have a 1, 2, 3 block. So once when you do that, you want to keep the side plate. You want to keep the side plate and your common rail on a flat surface. We're using a machined granite piece. And the idea is to make sure that you're making these two flush on the bottom, and then by using these two pieces right here, when you put it together, the side plate should be flush when those two are used as a spacer. Then I like to double check the other end just to make sure we're good. And all I've done here so far is I've just snugged up these two just so I can feel that it's flush on the bottom, that we got our spacing on the sides. I'll snug them up. I use my electric drill motor, and you always want to make sure that you don't put it in the drill setting. You want to have it in a torque setting. So I have it on the highest one here, so either 14 or 15 on this little drill motor that I'm using here. And there's one of your side plates completed and final torqued. Now the ends that have the large holes on it are the front, so I made sure that it was flush on the front on this one, so I'm going to do the same thing on this other one. So I'm going to come to the other side. Flush on both sides. We're flush on the ends or on the bottom. And there you have it. You've put together your two lower side plates. So the hardware that we have that holds the side plate to the common rail is in 4 different places. You have it here, 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 and here. And what you want to make sure is that you don't end up getting a bow in between any of these sections. So when you go to flush up the end and the bottom, once again I'm using my 1, 2, 3 block, pressing towards the 1, 2, 3 block and also down on the granite. I'll come here and I'm going to snug up one of the screws there, but I'm going to, in between these two, I'm going to put my hand in the middle to make sure that I don't have that bow. And then I'll come back here, snug that one. I'll do the front one, and I'll do the back one. Once again, pressing the side plate and the common rail down to the granite or your countertop or kitchen table, making sure that it's flush on the bottom, which it is. You'll notice that there's no gaps going along the common rail and the side plate here. And then we'll just double check the ends to make sure our spacing is good. And we're flush there. And we come to the other end and do the same thing, and we're flush there. So now we're going to build the upper side plates, and you have the maker slides, which is the upper runway rails where the y-axis runs, and then your other two side plates. So the way that we build them here, they're opposites. You'll notice that on the single hole end, you have one where the gap is on the top side and one where the gap is on the bottom side. These gaps, you want to make sure that you put them on the lower side of the side plate, and this is going to come in handy whenever you go to tighten your Y drive belts. So same thing that we did with the lower side plates, we're going to do with the upper side plates. There we go. Because we still want to line up with the with these holes being towards the center. So you have a single hole here on this side. The lower hole is going to go here. The dual holes is going to go on the dual side. So when you flip this over, this bottom groove is going to be towards the bottom of this plate, which is where you want it. So if you start out with the two grooves toward the middle, whenever you flip it over, they'll be in the right location. So I do a basic lineup once again of your holes here, and it'll get you close to where you need to be. And then we just slide the T-nuts back in. And if you can't do that, you can just use your Allen wrenches to slide them in. Every once in a while you move one of these maker slides, and so I like to put them back together where they stay relatively straight in the same location. And then you have to put along that middle edge of each one there for these holes at each side. And once again, you just place the plate up on top of the maker slide. And you'll see that the T handle is spinning until it stops. And then once again, I back it off just a little bit so it allows for me to be able to move the plate to the maker slide. So one of them is pre-assembled, and we'll go to the other. go. Now we have both of them pre-assembled, and this is what I was talking about by having the gap. You got to realize that this is going to sit on the bot this way, so your gap will be down, and this is how you're going to check the tension on your belt. Now the other thing that we have to do is you'll have some longer M5 by 45s for your pulleys and for some of your motors, and you have these additional holes. So I always like to take and put in as lineups, and you can see that all of them go in, so they're lined up good. And this is kind of where it's tricky. Initially, I'll put it on the edge of the table or something, and I'll kind of snug one end up. But you still have to go and make sure, because there is a little bit of room for movement. So we'll make sure that it's set up to the correct distance here. And you'll just do the same thing. It's just a little bit more difficult because you're hanging it off the edge. So I'm pushing down both on the maker slide and on the plate to make sure that it's sitting flat on my granite. You could be using this on a granite countertop in your home, table, something that's relatively flat. So you want to double check to make sure it's flush on the back, and you can see that it is. And then once again, before I tighten it, I just want to make sure that I'm flush at both ends. So I am there, and I am there. You can see that my hardware fits through there, so all my holes are aligned. So now you can tighten up your hardware. Now we'll do the same thing for the other side. So if you saw, I just snugged up that one, and that'll allow me to get everything flush there, and then check my end to see if it's flush. Make sure it's flush back there before you tighten it. You want to make sure it's flush on your front side. Make sure it's flush on your back side. Then get your hardware, drop it through, make sure that all your holes are still aligned, because you'll need to use those in the future, and then tighten it up. There you go. The pre-assembly of your two upper side plates is completed in final torque. So now to complete the upper side plate assemblies, what we want to do is we want to put these pulleys on, and this is where the drive belts for the Y-axis goes. So if you look at the bearings here, you'll see that they're kind of flush on the top, and so you'll want to, you hear it click, push it down all the way. Maybe you can see the difference between the two, how one of them, this one is set down a little bit further than this one. And notice also on the bearings I mean on the pulleys, that one side has a recess. So this is the back side, and this is the front side. So I'll click both of those in. I'll take my M5x45 button head, and drop it. Try that again. Put one there and one here. I do my own stunts. So with flat washers have a rounded side and they have a more squared side, and the square side can end up hanging up on your precision bearing. So you always want to put your rounded side towards the bearing, on either side of the bearing. So we'll take 3 washers and stack them up with the rounded side up on each one of the M5x45 button heads. Then we'll take our pulley and put the pulley over there. Remember, this is the back side, front side. Then we'll put the rounded side once again towards the bearing. And I like taking and putting a small dab of grease on here, just for the fact that sometimes stainless steel on stainless steel hardware can gall. If you use an electric drill motor, you don't want to go super fast. And if it starts catching before your hardware starts capturing all of your pieces there, you want to stop, because that means that your hardware is galling. If you keep going any further, you're going to have problems. You're already going to have problems getting it off, but the further you drive it, the harder it is. And we were using the 8mm wrench to hold the lock nuts in. So now, here you go. You can see these are the complete versions of your left and right upper side plate with the pulleys mounted on them. So by using the corner plate and either the bed rail or if you have the dual extruder, this is for calibrating the dual end hot ends. This is going to be what our spacing is to the end of the side plate from your 80/20 or your maker slide. This end that has the large hole is always the front end of your bot. And then some of the other things that we pointed out is that you want to make sure that the maker slide to the side plate is flush. And here's your maker slide. This is a little bit more difficult for the fact that you have your little triangle portion of it sticking up, and that's why you have to do it on the edge of a table or on your counter, because the whole edge doesn't sit flush. But you can see that this edge sits flush.